Hello, guys. Let's see how this goes. I'm just sitting on my couch, and I thought maybe. Oh, tell it. No, I'm not interested. Seriously. All right, I'm just gonna see how this goes really quick. And then I'm gonna full screen. Let's see what happens. Oh, am I still there? I am. Hey. Okay. So I just want to do something really quick. I've been having you guys read some stuff about the French and Indian War, and I know it doesn't seem like a kind of a big deal, but like it is really helpful to understand what happens in colonial America in the late 18th century. We left off with you guys talking about your paper essentially, and then like things happen, things change, right? So I thought if I just did this, and I'm going to try to keep it to like 10 minutes because it's kind of a long time just to see me, the little bottom of the screen, right, talking about the French and Indian War. So here we go. Ooh, okay, all right. So it's called the French and Indian War because the English are fighting, the English soldiers and American colonists are fighting the French. And hold on, I have like a little fun, cool things here. They're fighting, okay, right, the French and the Indians. Let's see if this works. Let's see. Right? Oh, it's not working. Oh, okay. That's annoying. Why isn't that working? Okay. Let's see. Does it work if I go? Does it only work if I'm in this? It only works if I'm in that. Okay. All right. Well, that's all right. Okay. All right. So, back to that. Okay. So the French and the English are fighting over control of resources, including my screen, resources and access to the fur trade, which is really lucrative, makes them a lot of money, and that's what's going on in this period. And it's called the French and Indian War from the colonial perspective because that's who the American colonists are fighting. The English refer to it as the 7-Year War because the British are not just fighting the French in colonial America, they're fighting them like all over the place. Like they're like everywhere. So we're focusing obviously like on this map, and you can see me with this cursor here, right? So the English control this, they control that. The French control all of this territory. Spain is like kind of involved in this war, but like not really. Like we don't have to worry about them. And if you notice, right, this is the disputed territory. This is what is the big fight over this. All I can do is just mess with my hat. I need to shower. I'm so sorry. Right, so that's the big issue. Ooh, Jamie Burke said she'd be interested. So I'm recording this right now for you, Jamie Burke. So this is the big fight between, obviously, right, the English are here, the French are here, and they're in dispute over this territory. Okay. Now, by 1763, end of the war, you notice something. In class, I normally do this. The kids are like, stop, you're giving me a seizure. But you can see that by 1763, the French have lost the French and Indian War. They only maintain some control of fishing islands off the coast of Canada, and then some control of sugar islands in the Caribbean. But don't worry, they still have a massive empire. They'll land on their feet. They're going to be fine. But this is going to set up an entirely different kind of dispute for the American colonists post the French and Indian War with the English. That's going to result in the American Revolution. Because if you notice, if you look at this date right here, 1763, right? Like, I don't know, like 13 years later, you guys, there's going to be a fight and it's going to be a big one, right? And and then the colonies are going to become independent. So before we get there, let's talk a little bit about this. Sophie says, sure, maybe, why not? Okay, so what do they want to do? This is, again, all of this is about land. All of this is about access to trade and land and control of resources. That's all you really ever need to know. But these wars are being fought about. People are dying for control and fight over, right? So that's great. Okay. So the big issue, though, the thing that if you remember any of this, good for you. And I'll do a little like, what did you take away from this? They're not going to pop up in the middle like the Ed Puzzle one. But I could do that if I wanted to. I could upload this to Ed Puzzle. We'll see if I do that. But at this point, let's just take it easy and do this. The Ohio River Valley. So if you look back here, right, you see this disputed thing right here. Do you see how that says the Ohio River right here? That this is what is in dispute. This is like modern day like Pennsylvania, parts of it, West Virginia, um, Kentucky, Tennessee. That's what this is. Okay. All right. French would like to, obviously, if you're the French, like look here, right? So you're the French. You control all of this. You've bottled up. You've kind of just trapped the English to the eastern seaboard. I'm touching this, you can't see it, obviously, the eastern seaboard. And then also up here. But this is good for trade, I guess, but you can't do anything here. It's not arable land. This is enormously fertile land. And the French really just they don't want to take over the colonies at all. They just want to keep the English stuck there. They don't want them to gain access to this. Okay. And then, oh, wait, there are indigenous people who live here. And then obviously they just want both of these Europeans out. Just want them out. They don't want them there. They're not interested in pursuing English objectives. They're not interested in pursuing, you know, they're just interested in maintaining autonomy over their land. And as you remember from watching We Shall Remains, you know how that's going to go, which is to say nothing. But here we are. That's what's going to happen. Okay. Oh my gosh, right. Oh wow. Let's go do a deep dive. All right. I love all these wars in that they're all named after English monarchs. Again, this war is about King William's War is fought in like New Hampshire and Maine. Fun fact about this war is that it's fought during the Salem witch trials, which plays a major role in the trials that we didn't really talk about, but that's okay. But all of this stuff that is really meaningless to you, the only reason it's important is that you know that the 7 Years' War didn't come out of anywhere, right? Like there's tension, there's conflict between Great Britain and France over who is going to be the most powerful European empire. And at this point, Spain's really powerful, but Spain has created like a really powerful empire in Central and South America. They're not really, I want to go this way, right? Yeah, there we go. They're really more interested in conserving their power there, and they're not interested in creating some sort of like massive empire in the north. Like as that's they really don't want to go much farther north than like Mexico, honestly. But the French and the English are looking to become these dominant powers. All right. So the first clash is over the Ohio River Valley. So as you might have read about this. There's this guy whose name is Robert Dinwiddie, which is a fantastic name, by the way. He's like a super rich guy. So a lot of his stuff is about like super rich people being like, oh my God, I really want to hold on to my land. Like, will you slightly less rich, but like still kind of totally rich person help me? And they're like, sure, we're rich people. We stick together. So George Washington is 21 years old. Young George Washington, not super rich at this point in time. He is not married to Martha Custis, which makes him a rich man, the richest man in America, actually. But at this point, he's 21 years old, doesn't know what the fluff he's doing. He gets sent out to go tell the French to stop. So he gets sent to, don't you miss me telling these stories? I'm sure you don't. The Ohio River Valley. And George Washington's like, stop doing this. Stop being here. And the French are like, yeah, no, we're good. We're gonna stay here. And you can't see this as George Washington and the Shawnee Indians. This is great. So Fort Duquesne eventually becomes Pittsburgh, by the way. But in any case, so they show up, and oh my God, I think I show you a clip of it tomorrow. You'll see a clip for this Pontiac's Rebellion thing I'm doing. The video is so bad. And then the people like look into the screen and they're like, oh, I was writing letters. And then all of a sudden it's like primary sources, the worst, but it's hilarious and I love it. So George Washington's like, let's build a fort here. And the Indians are like, are you serious? This fort's like a bunch of sticks. This is like the stupidest fort I've ever seen. And they completely crush the English. But that's where the war starts in North America. So it's called the 7 Years' War because it doesn't really start in Europe until 2 years later. But in America, it's fully happening. Okay. Yay. These two people. All right. He's French, obviously. I don't know why there's a nuclear bomb thing here. Like, that's not historically accurate. Lord Loudon is a jerk face, and American colonists hate him. Fun fact. All right. Okay. This is when we get into the good stuff. You're like, really? Is this the good stuff? If you're still watching, I'm so proud of you. Good for you. Good for you. During this time of unknowns. Doesn't sound weird. This is like quality teaching right here, Till. Oh. No, I'm talking to you guys. which might be to myself, quite frankly. Who knows? All right, British and Americans. So the English. Here's the deal, also about colonial America. When the colonists came over, the English, back in England, were like, do whatever. Like they had royal colonies, and they like kind of exerted some control. And there is control, obviously, over American colonies because they're not like they're not like totally self sufficient, but they are not. I'm trying to figure out like a way to. Oh, that's. I kind of like that. How do I do that though? I'll just test my leg. Let me see. That's not helpful. Just trying to figure this out. All I'm looking at is what a better look. Anyway, so I'm super distracted. Sorry, by this video of me in the corner, which is probably not helpful. So there's tension between the Americans and the British. They don't have a tremendous amount of experience interacting with one another because the British have kind of just left the colonies alone. And there's a specific term they use to describe this policy of leaving them alone. It's called salutary neglect. They're like, as long as the colonies are producing the raw materials that we need, we don't really care too much about what they're doing. Like, do whatever. Like, live your lives, But that all changes when they're fighting this war, and American colonists are like, we're going to fight like Indians, like indigenous people, right? Like, we're going to hide and like kind of use some guerrilla style tactics. And the British are like, that is not how we do things. And there's a lot of beef between the two of them, which down the line is going to be very problematic. And I'm always like, which two things do you think would be the most problematic here? And I think finances is a big deal. Obviously, the British are like, you guys should pay your own way. And the colonists are like, we're not interested in paying taxes. You don't let us exist in Parliament. So why should we pay taxes? We don't have representation in government. No taxation without representation. There's also a lot of cultural differences. America is seen as kind of like this wild, it's wild, it's untamed, it's much less formal. They're kind of casual. They do things in their own way, and there's just like a lot of tension. They butt heads a lot. That's gonna be problematic. Okay, and the war's going like terribly, by the way, for the English. They are not doing well, and the colonists don't want to fight because they hate Lord Loudon. Lord Loudon, excuse my language, is a dick. It's kind of the worst. It's really rude, very nice to colonists. And William Pitt's like, no, we need them. So he gets rid of Lord Loudon. He fires him, sends him back to England. And he tells the colonists that if they pay right now, they'll be reimbursed. And so this is great news because colonists sign up in droves. They exceed their quotas. It's amazing. War ends. There's like other things that happen, but for all intents and purposes, people die, people sacrifice their lives. It's very moving. But for us, what we want to know is that France loses big in this war. And England wins big as well. Wins big, lose big, no risk, no reward. And England winds up becoming the most powerful country. All right, so and we'll talk about this tomorrow. But this is the Treaty of Paris, and there's so many of them, and that's so confusing. The war ends in 1763, and England is victorious, despite there being problems with indigenous people, their indigenous alliances, despite problems with the American colonists, but they've secured the right to the fur trade. They've secured slave trading rights, which is horrific, but also extremely lucrative. And they become the most powerful empire. Like prior to this, England is really not as powerful as France. But after this, England becomes the England that you guys learned about in ninth grade. They control India, they control huge parts of the Middle East, and they become the most powerful, probably the most powerful colonial might in the world. And I'm going to stop now, and I'm going to create maybe some questions to go along with this, and hopefully you didn't hate it too much. All right, deuces.